って優等生だもん。
A disclaimer here. This video covers pretty uncomfortable topics talking about emotional neglect and apathy. If you feel like that might personally affect you negatively, you should stop watching. Also, this video contains major spoilers for Up to Secret Distance with very minor spoilers for JP events. I had planned on covering Mirage of Lights and Carnation Recollection, but that new Mafuyu event got announced, so I got kind of lazy and I'm putting off the JP events. If all of you guys are okay with that, then we can begin. For me, Mafuyu was the first character that caught my eye when I first discovered ProjectSekai. I found it through 25T's 3D MV of Self-Inflicted Achromatic. I absolutely adored their cover of the song and was pretty frustrated that it was so short, so I dug really deep and found that it was from a Japanese rhythm game before I jumped down the rabbit hole. You might be wondering why I'm giving such a long personal anecdote for a video about Mafuyu. I have a very heavy attachment to all of the 25T characters, but you'll see this most with me talking about Mafuyu and her story. Well, maybe you'll see it more with one other character. I'm going to be frank. This video is very, very biased. It shouldn't be seen as an objective take on Mafuyu's character, her beliefs as well as her message. Stat clear. In addition, I don't have access to transcripts of all card stories, so I might accidentally omit some of the more important ones. Look, I'm a pretty broke college student, so keep that in mind, okay? With that out of the way, I can finally start talking about background information.
好きとか嫌いとかよくわからないから話しづらくて。
Yuki, as she's known by at this point in the game, starts off as someone pretty friendly and chill with how she interacts with her bandmates. Things seem to be going pretty well. Social media is blowing up talking about the group's new songs and the bandmates seem pretty amicable. At this point, we don't really have much of a reason to read further into Mafuyu's character. Other than her art, she seems the most normal out of the four. She is still actively attending school and she even seems to have a cordial relationship with her mum. Hell, she even has a functioning sleep schedule, which is probably the only suspicious thing in her life so far. However, it's slowly revealed that things aren't as they seem. Soon after we meet the group of 25T, a creator known as Own bursts onto the scene and their songs are, well...
言葉にできないことを全部形にしてくれるみたいな。でも K の曲と違ってオウンの曲はすごく冷たくて。
As if they're rejecting everything around them. Own at this point acts almost like a foil to 25T. A creator that, unlike K, doesn't care about saving people. They just want to abandon all hope and wallow in their misery. Somehow, they're getting pretty popular, reaching 200,000 views on all four of their songs. But K notices something weird.
ねえ、ユキ。この曲、ユキが作ったんじゃない？え？自分じゃよくわからないかも。私はこんな音選びとかアレンジはできないし。
And this is when you start reading a little further. Is she telling the truth, or is she lying with a completely straight face? You can't really tell at this point until the call ends.
くだらない。こんな曲作り続けても、まだ全然見つけられない。
Her tone changes and her voice is much harsher. This complete shift in tone is jarring unless you've picked up on some of the signs since the unit introduction.
それじゃあ、お母さんの手料理って言っておこうかな。
The inner workings of Mafuyu's mind slowly unravel over time and become much more apparent with the interactions with her mother, especially outside of the main episodes and in Mafuyu's card stories.
あのね、私、看護師になりたいの。病気で困ってる人の役に立ちたくて。何してるんだろう。読みたいかわからない本を読んで、やりたいかわからないことをやって、一体何を。
These are instances of emotional neglect from one's parents. Her opinion is disregarded and she has all agency taken away from her.
お母さんたちが欲しがってる言葉が勝手に口から出てきちゃうだけなのに。
It doesn't help that this has been happening since Mafuyu was in junior high, where at oldest, she's 15 years old.
お父さんとお母さんが応援してくれるなら、きっとその方がいいんだよね。
To be ignored by your parents to people who you desperately want to please and get validation from. For those of you that think the conversations are exaggerated, to be entirely honest, they aren't. In fact, I think some of you can relate to the neglect that was portrayed here. I come from an Asian family, and while I heavily dislike perpetuating stereotypes, it is true that I was heavily pressured by those around me. Whenever I did really well in my tests and exams, I was showered with praise. But over time, getting high marks wasn't good enough anymore. I wanted to be an author. But when I brought it up, my parents shut me down. Said it would be better if I studied medicine or went into law. They aren't necessarily wrong, but that attitude is just so normalized now, which is pretty sad. Sure, you can say that her parents only want the best for her and wish for her to live a happy life without many troubles with money or social class.
みんな笑ってくれてる。みんなが喜んでくれるなら、やっぱりこれで合ってたんだよね。
But then, what did it cost?
このケーキ、あんまり味がしない。美味しいのかな。でも、お母さんが美味しいって言ってたから、美味しいんだろうな。
She lost herself, along with her dreams, the way she carries herself, and even her feelings. She put them all aside to serve others' wishes.
でも、ケーキだけじゃない。レストランの料理もお母さんの料理も最近味がしない。
Last of all, she even lost those around her. And because of that, she withered away. The good girl persona had caught up, and she wasn't allowed to speak for herself anymore.
気にしすぎかな。気分転換に好きなことでも。あれ？私、何が好きだったんだっけ？私は何が好きだった？何がしたかった？私はどこにいるの？
To be expected to meet expectations without any questions or troubles. That is the pain of living as Mafuyu, the perfect honor student and the good kid. Someone who is selfless. Selfless. Isn't it funny that the word that describes kindness and charitability could also describe a lack of self? I could talk about Mafuyu, do some research about what disorder she might have, symptoms there are, such and such. However, the fact of the matter is that I am not a trained psychiatrist or psychologist who specializes in diagnosis and help. I am completely uneducated in this topic. So instead, I'm going to try to interpret the message Mafuyu's writers had for her.
ユキはユキのお母さんの言うことすごくよく聞いてるみたいだったから。ほら、マリオネットって操り人形じゃん。だから自分と一緒で操られてるって思ったのかもしれないね。
Mafuyu is a generally miserable character throughout the entire story. She's someone who no longer sees the point of living and can only move on to the next day with a wad of pain. Someone who eventually feels nothing to everything around them. Someone who no longer has a reason to live. Mafuyu's story terrifies me because it shows what most of us would have become if we were good kids. Wouldn't we have ended the same way? Think about your past. Regardless of whoever you are, wherever you are in the world, you probably still hold on to what you believe in. Your principles, your feelings, your aspirations, you. You kept you. Like Mizuki did when they decided to stay true to themselves.
周りに少しずつ自分の形を変えられそうになってるところとかさ。それに抵抗したり受け入れたりして。そうやって必死になってるうちに疲れて
全部どうでもよくなっちゃう。そんな感じが似てるなって。
But Mafuyu didn't. Day after day, she desperately tries to find it. Something, just anything that can make her feel again. To want to live, to try. But it never comes.
私は消えたい。それが私の本当の思いなの。
Inevitably, she loses all hope. And can you really blame her for that?
もう疲れたの。希望があるかもって。まだ見つかるかもって思うのが、もう救われるかもなんて思いたくない。もう疲れたの。探しても探しても探しても探しても探しても見つからなくって、また探して違うって絶望して、もうこれ以上どうしようもないじゃない。
If Mafuyu was isolated at this point in this position, things would have likely escalated. She would have wasted away in the empty Sekai waiting for her slow death. But she wasn't alone.
私が作り続ける。この曲でユキを本当に救えなかったとしても、救えるまで作り続ける。ユキが自分を見つけられるまでずっと作る。うん。僕たちにも覚悟がいるのかもしれないね。そう。前にケイがユキに見せたみたいにさ。
でも、ないのとわからないは違うでしょ。参考になりそうだったら使って。
ねえ、ユキ。もし爆発しそうになった時は、私たちのことを巻き込んでいい？うん。ちゃんと巻き込んで。
It's rare for me to feel genuine happiness when watching media. I personally find myself more sad and apathetic to most media, whether it be a rom-com like Kaguya-sama or something cute like Spy X Family. I'm not trying to be different for the sake of being different here. It sounds very pretentious, I know, my bad. They feel to a certain extent fake, and there's nothing really wrong with that. I just preferred following someone's journey and development through their arc. Mafuyu's development throughout 25T's arc is different. She isn't functioning okay by the end of episode 20, while in fact the entire band is still pretty damaged or hurt by their past in some way, shape or form. And you could argue this is just because it's a gacha game, but they've at least gotten better.
奏、見つけてくれてありがとう。
However, not everything is okay, and that makes it feel so much more genuine.
こうやって楽しく話してても、みんな本当は抱えてるんだよね。
Kanade will have her savior complex regardless of how damaging it could be to her.
奏はお父さんのことがあって。
Mafuyu will still feel like life is pointless and that maybe she'll never find what she's searching for.
真冬は自分を見つけられなくて。
Enna will continue to struggle with her art and distaste for those who have talent.
エナも書くことに苦しんでる。
And Mizuki's issues will stay a secret from the rest of the band.
それから僕も。
But one day, hopefully anyways, they will overcome that. Even if that's near impossible considering their past traumas. Mafuyu will find her way. Kanade will feel like she has more reason to live than just composing songs. Enna will grow and empathize with those that have talent while nurturing herself through hard work. And Mizuki will be able to truly talk about themselves regardless of how long that takes. The songs that 25C release all cover a resolution or represent a member's character arc somehow. I'll only be covering 2 songs as interpretations of lyrics are heavily subjective. When it comes down to it, you may have a completely different take on the same song with the same lyrics. And that's completely okay. Let's start with Jishou Mushoku. Self-inflicted achromatic talks about a harsh topic in mental health. where the affected person feels like they may be a burden on those around them. This is even heavily emphasized in some of Mafuyu's lines.
自分が何言ってるか分かってるの？そんなのもう一つ呪いを増やすようなものじゃない。
It's about someone who wants to be the person they present to others but feels discomfort at having to change themselves in the process. It's about someone who wants to disappear and wishes for that to be a positive for others in the world. But all of that is a dream. In the end, their disappearance wouldn't mean anything. The reason for the person wanting to disappear then shifts. Since the death wouldn't mean anything, is it wrong to wish to die? After all, everyone does so in the end, isn't that right? People will break apart, and even the self they constructed will deteriorate and rot. But yet, someone would feel sad if they died. If the singer were to disappear, nothing notable in the future would change. But that isn't the point. People expect the best from her, but it's not like Mafuyu will be able to provide that forever. From her perspective, it would be better if she were to just leave. However, Kanade pulls her back, someone who relies on her, who needs her to keep composing and surviving. Jackpot Sad Girl follows someone lamenting her life that is just like the rest. She feels like she lives pointlessly regardless of her talents, that love is something odd and hard to find in society and that people would never understand her. But she chooses to face her heart, and she warms up just a little. By the end of the song, she stops completely rejecting the idea that others will be able to understand her. And even without speaking up to the authorities in her life, the girl moves on with her companions, regardless of their flaws as people, the same way Mafuyu does across 25Z's events. She is still unable to share her deepest thoughts and feelings, but she faces that head-on to carve her own future. And this is described as a mistake to show that Mafuyu has moved on and left her perfect self behind. You know, apathy is seen as something positive in many places of the world. Individuality is looked down upon. After all, who doesn't want to be normal, right? I myself fell into the same trap. I threw my dream away and followed my parents' orders to make them happy. I ended up in a course that I started failing. I was never interested in engineering or chemistry, but I told myself it was to make my parents happy. What a joke of a human being. Don't get me wrong, I don't blame my parents for wanting the best for me. The one who threw those dreams down the drain was me. I did that to myself. But here I am today, a shell of that person who desperately wanted to write words that would help someone. For those of you watching this video right now, you might feel like what I'm trying to say is that you shouldn't force your expectations on others. Or maybe that we shouldn't try to live up to those expectations. Those are all completely valid interpretations of what Mafuyu's character is about. But in my opinion, this isn't the point of her arc. The intended message is much simpler.
そうか。私、見つけて欲しかったんだね。ミク。
You are not alone. You may feel that way, you may feel isolated, you may feel abandoned. But no matter how dominant that despair is in your life, please choose to believe. I can't say that I know what you're going through, but that doesn't mean you're alone. That doesn't mean that no one cares about you, and that doesn't mean you'll never find someone who does. You may feel like it's pointless, that no matter how hard you search, you will never find what you're looking for. But that's what makes our struggle matter, no? That despite how impossible it all seems, we can overcome the odds and come out on top, the same way they all have, in some way, shape or form. Thanks for watching. Make sure to visit again, yeah? See you guys later.